There are restrictions on a lot of them, so you don't necessarily qualify for every single type of financing available, but the types of financing that we're used, so we're going to break down those transactions. People often ask me, are there people with cash just bringing bags of money to Hawaii and buying up all the property? And you know me, I like to look at the data and actually see what's actually going on. If you compare the number of people that buy with cash or the number of people that buy with financing. So I got some data here to share with you, and we're going to break down, if you stay at the end, what it looks like in terms of what kind of financing do people use. So we're going to look first at the data from 2023 and 2024 so we can compare, has there been any change or any difference in those last 2 years? And now that we have complete data for 2024, we can do some comparisons with 2023. And so starting from January to December of 2023, and these are just residential and condominium sales, there was 1,597 cash or 1031 exchange closings. And so 1031 exchange is where you defer your capital gains tax and you basically transfer the cash from one investment property into another one. So it's very similar, same classification as cash when you close on a transaction with a 1031 exchange. So there was 1,597 of those transactions in 23, and then there was 1,572 that were financed, and so that was 50.3% were cash deals. So just over half of the transactions that happened, residential and condo sales, were cash sales here on the Big Island. And so how does that compare to the same time period in 2024? So in 2024, there was 1,643 cash or 1031 exchange closings on the island, and there were 1,632 finance transactions. And so if you add those up and divide out the cash, it was just over half, so 50.2%. So almost exactly the same number of sales happened in cash and in financing, or proportion anyways, between 23 and 24. So no big change there. And that's kind of been the trend the last few years. It's always very close to 50-50. Sometimes it goes down to 47% cash, but it's always pretty much 50-50 when it comes to sales here on the Big Island. So breaking that down even further, looking at what types of financing do people use, because a lot of times people talk about, hey, there's all kinds of different financing programs out there. What should I look into? There are restrictions on a lot of them, so you don't necessarily qualify for every single type of financing available, but the types of financing that we're used, so we're going to break down those transactions, those 1,632 finance transactions, and look at what type of financing each one of these transactions used. And so the first one is conventional. Conventional financing is by far the most common used type of financing, 1,438, so about 88% of the finance transactions were just conventional loans. And these are those loans that usually require 10-20% down and are just conventional. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those type of loans that you're familiar with. And of course, if you have questions about any of these details, I got an amazing lending team that I can connect you with to answer those. But most loans are straightforward and conventional. Then we had 176, so this was second place. So in a far second place, about 10% of the loans that closed were VA loans, so Veterans Administration loans. Everybody's pretty familiar with those. You do have to be a veteran or someone who qualifies to use that benefit. And so not that many though, very small percent, about 10% were VA loans. And then the next one, which is kind of close, 126 were FHA loans. This is first-time homebuyer type programs, low down payment program, and you do have to have some income qualifications in order to use this loan program, but very small amount, 126 were the number of FHA loans that happened. And then even smaller, and this is another loan program that a lot of people talk about and pitch and say you really should use, there was only 7 USDA loans that closed here on the Big Island, so less than a half of 1%. And so this only applies to areas that are rural. So there are some restrictions as to zip codes that you can use these loans in. And again, a good mortgage broker that we can connect you with will answer all of your questions around the different restrictions of these loan programs. But if you are good at math, you may be looking at this and saying like, hey, that doesn't add up to 100%. That is true. This is the best data we can get because this data is based off of what the agent puts into the MLS when they close, as they check a box. And sometimes people will check VA and conventional. So there's some transactions that are double counted. So the data is not 100% perfect, but this is a pretty accurate reflection of the type of financing that is used on the island when people use loans or mortgages to buy property. So if you have any questions about this, or you need a connection to a great lender to talk you through what the different programs are that are out there and what you qualify for, we can definitely hook you up and make that connection. And as always, if you have any questions about anything Hawaii real estate, you can always email me at dylan@buyabigisland.com, or there is a link in the description below to my calendar. You can just book a link there, and please subscribe to the channel. And every week we give you new information about Hawaii real estate, the latest and the greatest. Always appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys next week. Aloha.